Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lady Boss Call. It's actually not a call now, it's a live broadcast. So I want to welcome people to the call. We'll give people a few minutes to get on and join us. My name's Patti Hunt, and I'm coming to you live from Villanova, Pennsylvania. A little bit about me, and I just want to give some people some time to come on. I see a couple people are on, and I'm just going to give you some new things because this is a new platform we're using. There's a chat box there, and you can let us know, please, who you are, where you're coming in from. If you have questions or comments during the broadcast, you can put those in there, and I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. So again, welcome to the Lady Boss live broadcast. My name's Patti Hunt. I'm coming from Villanova, Pennsylvania. So just a little bit about me for those of you who are new. I have been in this industry for well over 4 years now. I've been with a number of different companies. I've had some successes and some not so much. And I got involved in this industry. And most of you know my husband, he does WGTV. But he got very ill 4 years ago, was out of work for almost a year. And when we were almost financially devastated, we decided we needed another way and got involved in the industry. And I'm so grateful that we did. This industry has been huge for us. So again, those of you new to our Lady Boss video live chat, the reason for this is to help inspire, motivate, and educate women in business. And for women, it's different than it is for men. So we hope to be able to inspire all of you out there and help in, it's tougher for women. It's different for women. So we hope to be able to help with that. Now, I am really excited today because we have a special guest today. And I'm so excited because I asked Annette Raynor, our co-founder and one of the owners of WG, to be on with me because of the topic. So I asked Annette, and I thought about her, and I know Annette's been such an inspiration to me. And I know she's been a great inspiration to many of the ladies that are part of WG. And she's also been a great inspiration to the men as well. But I look up to her, and I just admire her ambition and her drive and her constant, that go get it kind of attitude. She works very, very hard for WG, for all of us. She's got such a great passion for what she does. And, when I first met Annette, it's probably been almost a year now, in New York. I was just, I knew this was a person I wanted to know. I wanted to be, I wanted to be with and be involved with. So I'm so happy. Annette Raynor, welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, Patti. It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're
okay?
Yes. You're coming in loud and clear. So, and Annette's face can't be on, she said, because of technical difficulty. So you get to see her picture. But I'm grateful that you're here. So our topic tonight is actually about looking at the leaders that you see and really helping you to see what's really behind that. I know for me, as well as a lot of people, they see the leaders as these very special people that have these special skills, special talents. And, I know for me, I thought, well, how am I ever going to get there? I didn't have those talents. I didn't have those skills. And just 4 years ago, I didn't have those skills. So that's the topic that Annette and I want to talk about today. So Annette, I'm sure you started out and just became an owner of WG, and you make it seem so easy. It just happened overnight, I'm sure, right?
I wish.
Yeah.
It was a long, long haul, that's for sure. I think, first of all, let me just tell you a little bit about where I started out. Sure. I was born in Brooklyn. I lived in an apartment with my family. My parents were great to me, but I would say that, we didn't really have a lot of money, but we didn't know what that, at least the kids didn't know that we didn't have a lot of money. Anything I ever wanted, I pretty much had. But as I got older, I started to see that there were different places I would prefer to live, different things I'd want to have. But I was just pretty much driven to, you know, get to work. That was like always my attitude. I started, sorry about that. I knew that was going to happen at the most inopportune moment.
It's a home-based business, right?
There's not much I could do about that. I tried to notify everyone to stay away, but so be it. Anyway, I got out of school and I actually dropped out of college. And maybe, you know, I don't even know if a lot of people know that. I do not have a college degree, so I always kind of felt like I was a little bit behind everyone else. But by the time everyone graduated from college, I was already going through the ranks at Xerox. I was already a regional manager by the time they were coming out of college and just trying to start their job. And at that time, I didn't even realize that there were challenges. Like, I didn't even choose to recognize it. It wasn't even like I was aware of it. And it was later on that I started to notice, like, what do you mean? Why is he getting ahead? Or why isn't that person answering me or listening to me? But at the beginning, I can honestly say it wasn't like that. You know, when you just like kind of, you have the blinders on. You're not even aware of what some of the challenges or issues are. But as I moved through the ranks at Xerox, it became very apparent. And specifically, there was an HR woman who felt that I was too young to make the income I was making. And she would not approve my raise after my managers put in for it. And this was a woman. So this blew my mind completely, because here's someone in HR who should be an advocate, you know, for the employee, not necessarily just me as a woman. But to think that her statement was, and she said this out loud, you know, she's not married, she doesn't have a family. I don't understand why this is necessary. And the thought that, what do you mean? What is that? It's about my work effort. It's about what I do. You know, I'm doing the same job as 3 other people. They're all paid more than me. You know, this is something I've earned. And that was like the first wake-up call for me, that you don't even know what's coming at you, and you don't know where it's coming from. It might come from the most unlikely place. And as I continued with Xerox, it seemed that that was something that became prevalent, in that even if it was an HR and that woman's scenario, you were targeted to make a certain amount of money. And to, as soon as I would, you know, meet my objective, my budget, whatever they gave me, and I would overachieve. And the next thing they would do is raise my budget, which meant I had to do more to make the same amount of money. And that continued for 5 consecutive years. I was with them a total of 15 years. And that was my wake-up call to say, you know what? They've got this wrong. You know, I mean, they should want to pay me as much as possible. Why would you want to target my income? And their attitude was, they shoot for the middle. And if you overachieve, you're like that outside of the bell curve. And that's when I knew it was time. It was time for me to go, because I wasn't going to do that. And I ended up becoming, when I left, one of the largest Xerox resellers. I set up my own consulting firm. And again, it was blinders on, right? Because, hey, I quit my job. My family almost had a heart attack. Like, what do you mean you quit IBM? They never got it right. All 15 years I worked for Xerox, they never got it right. But they freaked out when I quit. And I was afraid. For 3 months, I drove around in circles, you know, really asking myself, am I really ready to do this? What if I'm no good? What if I'm only good inside of Xerox? What if I don't succeed on the outside? I mean, the torture I put myself through until I finally made the break. And when I made the break, it was just head down. And I said, you know, in 3 months, I have to be able to make an income. And in 3 months, not only did I make an income, but my company started to generate more revenue than my husband's company, which was doing a similar thing. And I ended up merging the 2 companies. So it was after that that I went ahead and decided I had it with technology. And really, I had learned how to trade, and I was making more money in my trading than I was working 70 hours a week in my business. So why should I stay and do that? And I made a switch to finance and real estate in 2005. And I want you to think about that year for a moment, 2005. by far the worst possible time you could have decided to switch into real estate and finance, because literally the world fell apart. And that's where I really learned challenge and heartache and loss, and that hard work doesn't necessarily equate success. Sometimes you're going to work harder than you can ever possibly imagine, and that's only to stop the losses, not necessarily to make anything. But I really believe, if I look back, besides the fact that it was very stressful, it was really necessary, right? That whole path was necessary for wealth generators to be what it is, right? Because if all of that doesn't happen, then wealth generators doesn't happen. So in my particular case, it was necessary. And so I'm grateful. I embrace that chaos and that loss, because it was there where not only did I learn the most, but they made me much stronger, right? I mean, I survived something that a 125-year-old company in Lehman Brothers couldn't survive. And there's something to be said for that.
Absolutely. Wow. And, you know, I've spoken to you a number of times. I've heard some of your stories, but you certainly have shared things that I've never heard before. I knew you had been with Xerox and, you know, just didn't understand or see the challenges that you faced. I mean, like you said, you expect guys to treat women sometimes, and I'm not making generalizations. There are a lot of great guys out there and could care less, women, men, whatever. But you expect, at least if somebody in the business, you know, especially 15, 20 years ago, you know, would be a little more supportive, and she was the very person that didn't support you.
Yeah, and conversely, it was men who mentored me in Xerox and who went out of their way to help me, which was, you know, now that I look back, it was really ahead of their time. I mean, way ahead of their time to go out of their zone, right, and to say, I see something here, you know, I want to help this girl. And,
Right.
you know, that's really nice. But I'm sure, I mean, as much as there's all, and I could go on, trust me, with stories that would just blow your mind. But I would imagine I'm not alone in that, Patti. I mean, you don't just wake up, right, and end up here. So, I mean, like in your situation, you know, how did you arrive?
Yeah. And my story is very different than yours, but I think, you know, we still kind of face the same challenges. I grew up in a house where I knew we didn't have money. It stressed me out all the time. It wasn't kept from me. I didn't have everything I ever wanted, for sure. It was a struggle. And the message I got was, go to college, have a good career. You work that career for 30 years, you retire with the watch and the pension, and you're fine. And I decided to go into teaching, which, you know, when I decided to go into teaching, people thought that was great. I actually went ahead and got my master's plus 45. I had my nice pension, and I expected that would be what would take care of me. I would just keep working that job and I'd be okay. Well, and a lot thanks to WG and learning about finance and learning about things, and Dan getting ill, we started looking at that pension, and it was horrifying. So, you know, going through, I was a teacher. I only spoke in front of a room when they were children, because they had to sit there and listen, or there were consequences. I did not want to speak in front of people. When I started out in this industry and I was told to pick up the phone and, you know, call and reach out to somebody, and I joke, because I tell my team members this, going and cleaning the bathroom sounded way more exciting, way more fun, way less scary. So literally, I'd be sitting there trying to pick that phone up to make that first phone call, or that second or that 10th or that 20th phone call, and think, you know, the bathroom needs to be cleaned. This can wait. So it was scary getting on and doing a broadcast like this. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, would have been like, no way, me, no way. So this is a whole different industry, and I've, you know, had to get through all of that. Every step of everything new in this industry, you know, I've had to just face those fears and go through it. So, and I think, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I think there are a lot of people out there in this industry that want this really bad, whether it's WG or whether it's some other company. They want really bad to be successful, and they want to, get through and do the things that they need to do. But I think they look at themselves, and I know I did. I looked at myself and I thought, you know what, I'm not capable. And I think I told you the story, and that I want to tell people. I sat there and I watched the people up on stage, week after week, and we had weekly meetings, and there was a couple that used to come in town that looked perfect, sounded perfect, knew all the right things to say. And one day I went up to him and I said, John, I don't have the skills that you guys have. So how could I ever be successful? I mean, I've really opened myself up. And he said to me, the only difference, and this was life-changing for me, he said, the only difference between me and you is how many people you're willing to call. He said, I was willing to keep picking up the phone until I was successful. He said, that's the only difference. He said, the rest of it, he said, you learn as you go. And that was really life-changing for me. I didn't have to look and sound exactly like they did. He would share with me how horrible they were in the beginning, what it was like trying to talk to people. And I really want, I wanted to talk about this because I want the people that watch this that, aren't yet there yet. They're not yet leaders, to know that what they're going through and what they're feeling is normal. Whatever that means. It's normal. We've all been through it. If you ask any leader, anybody that you think looks perfect, sounds perfect, reach out and talk to them and find out what it was like in the beginning. I think
I would agree stories wholeheartedly. I mean, and I would say that not just in network marketing and in leadership, but in anything, probably the most significant skill, if I had to pick one, right? Because there are two that come to mind, and I know one of them would shock most people, but certainly what I think is the most important is presentation skills. And I was deathly afraid of presenting. Yet I found myself in a job where I was the instructor for Xerox, and I either learned how to get over that fear really quick, or I wouldn't have had a job. And when faced with that, it was to the point I was afraid I was going to get anxiety attacks of how crazy I got myself. But I had to teach for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I mean, it was a 40-hour course. That's a long course. And after the first week, and then the second week, and I'll tell you what, by the third or fourth week, it was old hat, and it became, it just got better and better and better. And the fear ultimately just melted away as I became more confident in my content, in my knowledge. And that has been one of the most important skills that I've taken with me throughout my career. I can honestly say that my ability to present, whether it's in a meeting, in a one-on-one, right, in front of a room, has been critical, right, to getting people to hear me and to understand, right, what the objective is. And the second skill, believe it or not, is I type 110 words per minute. I smoke everybody. I can send out more emails, more texts, create more documents, than anybody else. And not having to rely on anyone else to do that has really enabled me to step up the pace in a lot of situations. So a skill that most people wouldn't have expected to be critical certainly turned out to be. And I think, though, when I talk to people, even my own kids, my one daughter, she's petrified to have to speak in front of a room. And that scares me because I know how important it is. Mm-hmm. And you couple the fact that they're not even used to, forming full sentences because of texting. And I'm deathly afraid that, they're going to get up there and talk like they text.
And you know what? And that's great. And that's the next thing, because you and I talked about, and I wanted to share with people, because people used to say, you do it, you just do it. And I wanted how do you do it? And I think that's great. One of the main things you said was you face your fears. And so easier said than done. Everybody that's listening, yes, it's easier for me to sit here and say that than to do it. But Annette and I, we've also been there. We've had to do it. We've had to get up there. That first time, you are shaking, you are sweating, you can't talk, your throat's dry. You have to embrace it. And, you know, some of the things that I think that you could do is decide, first of all, you're going to face your fear. Having a buddy, I always talk about an accountability buddy that pushes you. So my team right now, I've challenged them to do a video, a Facebook video, because that might be a little easier than getting on stage in front of people. So I've challenged them to do a Facebook video, decided when we were going to do it. I kept, you know, I called them and I kept saying, okay, you got to do it now. We're not waiting. What are you going to say? Talk them through it and get on and get it done. And you know what? Everybody I've ever talked to that I've challenged to do that, once they've gotten on and done it, it's like, wow, you know, I didn't do great. It wasn't perfect, but that's not so bad. I lived through it. So that's huge. But you know what, Annette, you brought up a good point as far as being able to get up on stage. And I think one of the things that I look at that people, and you know, you could, I'm sure you could speak to this, you just said it. When you first got up, it was a challenge getting up there teaching that class. And by week 3, it was no big deal. Well, people look at confidence, being confident, as something that you get up and you become confident. Confidence comes with being confident. So once you do something and you talk about it, right? Can you relate to that?
Absolutely. I am telling you, when you know your content, when you really understand your message, there's nothing that can stop you. And the one thing I did learn, I'm grateful to Xerox, I talk about it all the time, is their Train the Trainer program. They really did teach me how to train myself when it came to presentation. In other words, there was a structure. Even if I was doing nothing but a 10-minute speech, I had to answer certain questions in the first 2 minutes that were mandatory. And they would say, it might be difficult for you to write this. You might think it's a lot of information, but if you answer these questions for your audience in the first 2 minutes, you will have a successful presentation. Now, of course, I didn't necessarily believe them, but I had to follow along, right, with the course. And what it came down to, and they were so right, because to see it play out was truly amazing. Most people are sitting in that audience doing this. Why am I here? Who is this person? Why the hell should I listen to them? They look like they're 10 years old. I don't belong here. How did I end up here? Who invited me? Like, all these things are going through their head. Oh, when are they going to ask me for the money? When is it coming? Like, all of these things. So Xerox taught us in the opening, you know, they had a very, you know, cute little anagram for it, the U-Popper. Basically, you tell people who you are, why they should listen to you. In other words, it has to be a compelling reason why they should listen to you. Either you went through it yourself or you have the credentials. In either case, state that. Tell them how long you plan on speaking to them. Tell them a little bit about what you're going to talk about, and tell them what you expect of them by the time it's over. And by doing that, you answer all of those questions. So the people that are fidgeting, that are listening to you, just got all of those uncomfortable things answered. And by the time you're done with that quick opening with all of that information, we've cleared away the angst and the emotion that they had, so that they're at least in a better place to listen. In a lot of cases, you're halfway through the presentation and nobody's even listening to you because they're still going through all of those other emotions that they're dealing with. It's as uncomfortable for someone to just be sitting in a room where they don't know anyone as it is for you to be standing on that stage talking to those people who are not quite sure how they ended up there. And I think that people don't realize that, you know, and once I really learned that there was this science behind what I said and how to say it, it made it easier for me to even leave with what I wanted, because I told them in the first 2 minutes, this is what I want and this is what I expect when this is over. So from that, I think, yeah.
That's awesome. You know, and as a teacher, we're told to do that with students. And, you know, it applies the same for adults. You're right. Adults sitting there, why am I here? How long is she going to talk for? If you, yeah. And everything you said that needs to be done can be done in a minute. You know, my name is, this is what we're here to talk about. This is why you should listen. This is how long we're going to be here. This is my expectation of you. And that's a great message for people. And I hope people on the call are taking notes on that, because very valuable. Now, it's getting close, and usually we keep these calls to a half hour. People know that, and it's getting close to that time. I can't believe the time flew by so fast. I want to talk about one other thing, because people think about this and look at this all the time, and that is failure, failing. And, you know, what's your take on that?
I have this little book that says, Fail Forward with Me, just a tiny little book. And it was because in the midst of the 2008 scenario where the walls really came crashing down on me, it was a very emotional and very difficult time that I almost did not make it through. And many people in my area, in my town, did not make it through. Okay, they did not. They did not survive it. Literally did not survive it. Took their own life, could not cope with the devastation and what was being dealt. And this little book helped me understand that each one of these failures was the knowledge that I otherwise would never get. Access to information that I otherwise would never have. And when I started to realize that, I started to change, right? How I even prayed. Instead of saying, why me, right? I work so hard. Why me? Why are you doing this to me? It became, what is it that you want me to learn here? What is it that you want me to see? Because there must be some reason why I am being tortured to this level, you know, with this. And once that was my mindset, everything changed. That was where Wealth Generators started to become something. It wasn't called Wealth Generators then. It was really all about the company that I was trying to help and teach individuals how to do things for themselves. But it put me on an unmistakable path with people crossing that path and bringing to me exactly what I needed at the time that I needed it, as long as I was paying attention. And so for me, that was the crossroads. And you have to embrace failure. And trust me when I tell you, it is not easy. There were days I didn't want to leave my closet. I wanted to crawl up in a ball and die. But, and I'm grateful and faithful, right? I wonder how some people really can get through difficulties, whether it be financial, emotional, family, you know, without that. But in my case, I was very lucky, and I'm fortunate to have forged through that and saw that these failures were a path, a very necessary path, because I could never get here without those things.
Right. Absolutely. And I look, you know, you're talking a lot about the big failure, so to speak. I think people see the word fail or failure as this big, horrible thing. And you are only a failure, not successful, if you don't get back up. It's about getting back up and learning from what went wrong. Nobody's ever achieved anything by just getting up and being successful. If you just go out there and you're successful at something, great. What did you learn? How did you improve? How did you expand yourself? So when I first got up and you know, was on the air and did a live, you know, broadcast, there were things I did wrong. I learned from them. And I think in this business, in this industry, if you can't embrace screwing up, whatever you want to call it, failing, falling flat on your face, you make that phone call, you totally mess up everything you were supposed to say. If you can't embrace that and say, okay, I messed up, now what do I do? Then it's hard to be successful in this industry, but I think it's hard to be successful in any, you know, in
any industry or any challenge, even in your personal life. The other thing is, the one thing I always see, and I still see, and mostly in adults, which is very scary, is that the failure comes with shame. And that's the word that I hate the most. Yeah. I proudly wear my failures. I do not try to minimize them, because I know how hard I tried. I know how hard I worked. I know how much I put into, you know, still what ended up being a failure. So shame was not going to have a place. And once I made that decision, it was a lot easier to forge ahead, to the point where I think some people looked at me and were appreciative just because I was willing to say what nobody else was willing to admit.
That's perfect. Yeah. I mean, that is just perfect, because I think in this, especially again, in this industry, in this, the Lady Boss broadcast, being able to say, I failed. I'll be happy to talk about all the things I screwed up. I'd get on a phone call. I could hear myself screwing it up, and we'd get off the call and say, okay, I screwed it up. It's not easy at first. I think you're right with the shame part. When we all can band together and say, we've all done it, we've all been there. I still do it. I'm sure you still screw up sometimes, Annette. You still fail. You still, go back and think, okay, how could I have done that better? But until you could get past that, it's hard to move forward. I think this is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a big one. And I will tell you this, talk to someone, right? The thing that saved me was I was just willing to talk to everyone. Like I said, I didn't care who was listening, This is what happened. Some people I realize will not be able to get to that point, but by talking to someone, anyone, you do release it and let it go. Right. And just verbalizing that and saying that out loud and getting it out of your way does enable you to move forward. So I know, look at you and I, 32 minutes like in a snap.
Wow, I know. And I think we could keep going on, but I think, we've gotten to that 10 o'clock mark, and I 10 o'clock on the East Coast here. I think we need to wrap this up, but thank you so much, Annette. Again, there were a lot of great tips on here. Learn to fail, be okay with it. Talk to a leader, find out where they came from. And if they tell you, oh, I've always been this great, then maybe find somebody else to talk to. And embrace going out there and learning to be confident by becoming competent. So I think that kind of summed it up real quick. And I appreciate you coming on, Annette, and I appreciate the people that are on and watching, and hope that you got value from this. Thank you so much, Annette.
Thank you, Patti. It was great. I really liked having an in-depth discussion. So thanks so much. Everybody have a fabulous week.
Have a great week, everybody. Good night.